a day. It's insane.
To ballers.
You don't think
that we do it to ballers? We've been doing it for the past 3 years. You're just like a baller.
You don't think that reasoning and logic is natural? You think that's man-made?
Natural.
Oh my God.
Reasoning, logic is inevitable. It's not natural.
It's inevitable now.
It's
natural.
That's a cop-out.
Define natural. Hold on, Indio. Hold on, Indio.
Okay.
Define natural.
Natural reasoning, right?
No, there is no natural reasoning.
We've all been given reason.
Nature doesn't fucking reason, you moron.
So if P, then Q.
Hey, douchebag. God, shut the
That's called modus ponens. Yeah, it's.
Are you gonna define natural or not?
Can't even talk, dude.
Nah, he isn't gonna define it.
No, we want you to define natural.
Yep.
The natural reasoning. We want to know what that is. So what's the natural part?
God-given.
No. Citation, please.
Nature doesn't mean God-given.
I don't need a citation, Brainiac.
Yes, you do.
The argument for that, Indio.
There are things that For example, axioms, right? The logical axioms that we all use.
Shut the fuck up.
The law of non-contradiction, the law of excluded middle, right? These things are axioms. You know what an axiom is, Brainiac?
Did I trip over an axiom walking around in nature?
It means they're self-evident.
Did I trip over
I don't need a source, dude. I don't need a source.
Yes, you do. You need to support what you say, village idiot. Define nature and natural right now.
Bro, I'm not going to entertain this conversation.
Bro, I'm not your pal.
Bro. You're tweaking out.
I'm tweaking out because you're a retard.
I'd rather talk to the other guy, bro.
You're talking out your ass. You keep on talking. You're vomiting diarrhea of the mouth with nothing, no substance.
You're wigging out, dude.
Nature. What does natural mean?
Yeah, how does it help, dude? How does adding natural to freaking logic or reason, how does that help?
It's contrasted with empiricism, bro.
Unnatural logic, unnatural.
Reason and rationale has been contrasted and juxtaposed with logic for thousands of years.
Is there unnatural logic?
Yeah, it would be.
You're getting silly.
Anything that's fallacious.
That would be unnatural. Citation, please.
Yeah, because God is computational. He's orderly, right? Nature's orderly.
We want the citation for that shit right now. Yeah. Go ahead.
Bro, I don't need a citation. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
You need to support what you. If you don't support what you say, then what's the difference?
Do you know what? Do you know what?
Then what's the difference between you and your average village idiot down on the corner?
Do you know what self-evident means?
Do you know
inherent?
What
do you know what inherent means?
Your claims are, son.
There are things in nature, right? There are things in our life that are self-evident, like principles and axioms.
That's not what we're talking about.
We all like Archimedes' principle. We were just talking about it.
I don't trip over Archimedes' principle walking around the wood line.
What I'm trying to tell you, dude, right? There are things that don't need to be proven.
Oh, that's your whole point.
Do. You can trip on a rock, bro.
Where do I find logic in nature?
The law of identity.
It's all around
in nature, Torah.
If the laws of logic didn't exist in nature, you wouldn't know the difference between two things. Bro.
I find logic.
You guys are butchering Jay Dyer's argument, which is fucking sad, dude. If he was in here,
fucking stupid. Give us the logical syllogism for water boiling.
Bro, do you understand what an axiom
is? Bro, I'm not your bro. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you define. Look. You said things that are self-evident are axioms. Now, axiom, that's what the definition of axiom is.
Yeah, the laws of logic are self-evident. They're universally accepted,
you said,
right? Or principles that is considered self-evident and requires, guess what? No proof. Brainiac.
Yeah, no, the shit that comes out of your mouth wasn't an axiom.
You ask me, what's the proof?
What is the axiom that came out of your mouth?
You ask me, what's the proof for logic being natural, for reasoning being natural?
Don't fucking overtalk me.
It's an axiom,
You're the most retarded person in the room.
Dude,
you fucking idiot. You said natural, right?
You're just making Ipsy-Dixit declarations.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and if the laws of logic are an axiom, how come Aristotle wrote fucking tomes proving they're true? if they were self-evident? Why did he waste his time?
Because there's stupid people in the world that are illogical.
Aristotle.
Wait, but if hold
Yeah,
on,
he was writing to people, right?
Hold on. If they're self-evident, then there wouldn't be stupid people. It wouldn't have to be pointed out.
No, you can go against it even though you know it. It's called suppressing the truth.
No, you can't go against it because you would have to use the laws of logic to argue against it.
So then why do you need a paper on the argument of logic then?
Because he had to prove that this was true. Okay.
It's
With
not
a
something.
logical
Do
argument.
they need to be proven to be true?
They don't
Yeah.
need to be proven, and it's not something that you could prove empirically, dude. It's not. It's something that's just everybody considers an axiom. That's what
No,
an axiom
you're
is.
right, because it's
The
a
laws of logic are axiomatic.
We were
Of course
talking
it
about
can't be
natural
proven
science.
Dude, okay, of course the laws of logic can't be proven empirically because they're transcendental categories. They don't exist in nature.
Thank you. That's our point, dude. That's literally my point.
So your
That's
point
our
was
point, dude.
there's natural logic that don't exist in nature. Congratulations, you're
There are things like
Good
natural
job.
reasoning, like natural logic,
Shut
right?
the fuck up.
That are inherently
Natural
true.
law.
They're innate, right?
Like natural law. Like the second law of thermodynamics. That natural law.
Dude said natural logic and then denied that fucking logic's in nature. You, my sir, one that I don't even know what a word. We don't even have awards that low.
Huh. Doesn't know what logic is, doesn't know what axioms are. He used the get out of incoherent jail free card when we asked him to define nature as you don't have to define axioms. So therefore his axiom was nature. He didn't have to define it. He doesn't have to support it. He's a fucking glue sniffer.
Well, also, if logic is not in nature, that means nature is not in nature. Fucking dumb, dude.
Is nature
Go ahead.
is nature sentient, prescient, and intelligent?
Why are you granting it exists outside of your mind? How did you empirically prove it?
Anything if it's not sentient or an intelligent nature?
Yeah, it can't account for itself.
Based on intelligence, I can account for your retardation.
No, nature can't account for itself. So then how did you prove that nature exists outside of your mind?
Oh my God, we gotta stop. Have you ever ate food 100% for absolute certainty?
Well, yeah, but you're going to have to give me grounds that knowledge could be possible. You don't have anything that grounds the actual knowledge to be possible.
Shut the fuck up. You're just like a idiot baltard with his Elmer Fudd sophistry, you fucking moron. Do you know what natural science is, by the way? What is natural science?
Yeah, it used to be called natural philosophy.
Oh, that's amazing. Did I ask you what it used to be called? What is natural science?
Natural science grants the existence of the external world and applies uniformity of nature to the existence of the external world to be able to make cause and effect relationships. That's what science is.
Citation, please. Citation.
Yeah, science is based on uniformity of nature. You gave the citation when you said the problem of induction. That's your citation. The problem of induction.
Support what you say, dumb fuck.
Yeah, the problem of induction, you brought it up. It was your citation. That is the citation.
The problem of induction. I asked you for natural science, moron.
Yeah, the problem of induction is why is there uniformity in nature? You don't even know the problem of induction.
You're a fucking imbecile, dude.
You're a one-trick pony that don't even understand your own argument. It's fucking pathetic.
He keeps changing
it. Just because you don't understand it.
You don't understand. We understand that you're a glue sniffer. You should be institutionalized. You fucking clown.
Okay, you just gave a description of what you think the infirmities of science are as the definition. Okay, you're a moron. We want the definition of natural science. We don't care about what your opinion is about whether it finds truth or doesn't find truth or whether it's reliable or whether it has a correct justification. We don't care about all that. We just want the definition.
I gave it to you.
No,
I gave you the definition.
Your analysis
Natural
of the
science.
justification of
I
natural
can give it
science
to you
is
again
not
if
a
you'd like to
definition.
No,
stop.
please don't. You're a
We
dumb
want
fuck.
a definition. What is it that you're evaluating?
Yeah, nature, right? And but
Natural science is nature.
we grant nature to
We
exist
don't care
outside
about
the
that
mind.
part. That's
We
an
grant
evaluation.
uniformity
We
of
don't care
nature,
about that
and
part.
then what we do is we observe nature and come up
We
with
just keep
cause and
talking
effect
through you.
relationships.
We don't
just keep
care
them fucking
about
talking
that
through you, Indio.
part. That is an evaluation. We want the definition.
Yeah, I keep giving it at the end, but you're interrupting.
At the end.
You said natural science is nature. That was your definition.
Now,
And then
natural
you added
science
analysis.
is the observance of nature and deriving cause and effect relationships, all while granting uniformity in nature and that nature exists outside the mind.
Cause and effect, you better talk to your buddy then down here, brains leaking, lying. He said it wasn't about cause and effect.
I said it's not only about cause and effect.
It is only.
No.
Yeah, because we went through hypothesis, dumb fuck.
Nope. No, that's not true.
Yep.
Torah just disagree with you. Lion he just said that it was about cause and effect.
No, yeah, it's mainly about cause and effect, right? But you guys are doing this thing where you're
cause and effect.
Okay.
You're isolating it to only cause and effect relationships when clearly when we
walk you through the logic. We'll walk you through the logic.
When we do measurements of drop over distance, you're saying that's not science? That's not science, that's geometry. Come on,
yeah, dumbass. Yes, dumbass. It's geometry. Yes.
Okay, let me ask you. No, it isn't pedantic. So I'll give you an example. When you go to the doctor and they measure your height, are they doing science? They take your height and weight. Are they doing science?
No, dude. That's oversimplification fallacy, because when I come up with a hypothesis based off of my observation, why are you still talking? When I come up with a hypothesis based off of an observation of the horizon or water being leveled. Now you can catch me in a technicality.
What's your dependent variable, dumb fuck, in your hypothesis?
The independent variable?
Dependent! You can't fucking hear either.
No, because the way you're shouting, dude, I'm having trouble listening to your
variable.
Bro, I can't talk to you guys, bro. I'm trying to expand on the thought, dude, and you're grilling me, dude. Every 2 seconds, I can't even get my thought out.
Because you're a dumb fuck. Everything you say is stupid. So we gotta stop you to make sure that we confirm your premises are correct, so we don't chase a bunch of horse shit down a fuckwit trail. So what's the dependent variable?
Dog, I'm not entertaining you, dude. I was talking to the other guy.
The issue is lying. Hold on. The issue is lying that you started off based on your observation. Is that a natural phenomenon you're observing? What did you just observing something?
Absolutely. We're dealing with water seeking its level, and we're dealing with the horizon. Those are two base reference points, right? So you're using logic.
Hello. A horizon is a concrete noun, dumb fuck. It's not a naturally observed phenomenon.
Ah, dude. Here we go, dude. With the pedantic
It's a
arguments.
concrete noun, you moron.
Listen, the horizon
This argument
has an identity. The horizon has an identity, dude. In logic, the horizon has an identity.
Shut up.
We all know what the horizon is. Stop acting up.
You don't. It's a concrete noun. It can't be a dependent variable, like a tree. That's a concrete noun. That's not a viable dependent variable. Fuck.
Quantum has been tantruming. Holy shit.
I just want to know, like, who does he bamboozle with this bullshit, dude? What
incoherent second grade retards?
I can't believe, like, you've gotten this far with that gibberish. It's absolute gibberish.
Yeah, no, dude, he's over in the land of misread talk.
I can't even expand my thoughts, dude, without you guys jumping on me. We're not going to get anywhere like this. This is not a free speech platform.
You don't know what a concrete noun.
Not how adults act, bro. Don't worry. This is a depraved mind right here.
Just fucking shut up. Fucking color commentary, Torah.
If your premises are wrong, why should we go on?
Yeah.
So we're going to walk you through this. You already admitted you can't do science unless you have a hypothesis. You also admitted a hypothesis has cause and effect. Okay, so you can't do science without a hypothesis, and a hypothesis is cause and effect. Then science only deals with cause and effect.
Even okay, so let's say I grant you that, right? Just for the sake of the conversation, I grant you that science as we know it, as Francis Bacon establishes, is only based on cause and effect. Fine, all right. Let's not call it science if that pleases you, right? I don't want to get your panties in a bunch, so let's call it geometry. Okay. Fuck. When we use geometry, what happens? We can still use reasoning. We can establish a horizontal reference point. And then we can measure if it deviates. And that's how we do science, dude. What's the big deal?
When we use geometry, right, we know there's certain geometric relations, and we know deductively from mathematical proofs that they hold true. Okay? So we know that straight and curved are two different things. We know that an angle is the separation between two straight lines because they preserve the geometric relationship of the separation along their entire length. That separation angle does not change. So they have properties, right? These geometric objects have properties. We know what they are. All we have to do is go out and measure them to know what the properties are. It's very simple. This isn't doing science.
Okay, fine. Okay, we're doing geometry. Fine. Either way, I made an observation. I went to go test my hypothesis, whether you like it or not, to see if it was true, right? And I measured no deviation from horizontal,
dude.
Right? Call it what you want. Call it whatever your heart desires.
You don't have a hypothesis. Hello.
Call it whatever you want, dude.
You don't have a hypothesis, dude.
Call it whatever you want, bro.
We'll call it your sister. You don't have your
call
sister.
It whatever you want, dude. At the end of the day, there's ways.
Hypothesis.
My point here is that there's ways.
So we'll never be able to communicate with each other.
You don't need
to acquire knowledge, dude. To acquire knowledge, right? We can use geometry. We can use calculus. These things are valid and viable methods of acquiring knowledge.
Did we say they weren't?
It's not science.
No, but you're acting very.
Tell me what an infinitesimal is.
It's not.
You're resisting.
It's not.
I'm resisting.
Okay, that's fine, bro. If you don't like the word science,
you're resisting
geometry. That's fine, dude. I want to progress the conversation forward.
Progress the conversation through moron land.
So when we infer, right, a rational inference based off of water, based off of water seeking its levels. And the horizon being horizontal, I can make a rational inference using both inductive and deductive reasoning and come to a
hold on a second.
Why are you still talking? Come to a reasonable conclusion based off of geometric principles.
Shut the fuck up.
Based off of geometric principles.
Shut the fuck up. Shut up.
That there's no deviation from curve. And you guys don't have to call it science if you don't want to. That's fine.
So, hold on. Let me ask you a question. What is seeking its own level? What does that mean? Because seeking is a activity of a sentient mind. So what the fuck are you even talking about when you say seeking its own level?
Oh, so now you have a problem with my speech, dude? I'm conveying the idea that water, regardless, right, is always perpendicular to plumb.
Okay.
Now, so granted, there's waves.
That's better because now we're still in geometry and we're not in ascribing phenomenon to the water, right? So you're trying to mix and match two different things. And when you do that, you're going to run into fucking problems.
Yep.
Right. So one is based as a phenomenological statement, seeking its own level, and then saying the horizon is always a straight line. Right? That's a geometric claim. That's completely different. We're not saying why it is. We're just saying that's what it is. So
yeah, I know.
The problem is you're mixing and matching two different things. You're doing cold chart bullshit. Like when they say gravity forms a ball. Listen. When they say things like gravity forms a ball, right? They're mixing a phenomenological claim with a geometric claim. You understand?
Yeah, I understand that. All right, that's fine.
Okay.
I've already conceded that 10 minutes ago. Why are you still talking about the same concept, dude? Bro, I've already granted you that.
Dude.
Fine, dude. You don't call it science. Call it geometry. That's fine with me.
Dude, we're not
My point here is that there's ways to acquire knowledge outside of the scientific method of reasoning, dude. That's basically been that's been my thing since the beginning of this conversation when we're dealing with the downward bias. And you guys keep going back. Well, that's not science. That's not okay. Fine, dude. I'm not restricted only, and I haven't constricted myself to the scientific method of reasoning, dude. There's other ways, other epistemologies and methodologies to acquire knowledge.
Yeah, we know that. We've known that for years. Ever since you weren't even out here, we were preaching that. Who the fuck are you talking to?
All right, so there's you know what justification for your beliefs are?
I don't have any beliefs.
Oh, okay.
So you
I understand that you think.
So do you understand what belief means?
Yes, a justified true belief.
What is it?
A belief is justified through reasoning.
No, it's not.
And yes, it is. A belief.
True, but number one, that I asked you what belief was. You didn't know. It's acceptance without evidence. Justified true belief was debunked in the fucking 60s by Gertrude, man.
That's a definist fallacy. You're defining belief to fit your narrative. But it doesn't have to be. Sir. You don't have to take the word belief hostage and restrict it to your definition. Because belief doesn't mean you. Hold on.
Define belief with citation, please.
No, it's.
Define belief with citation to prove your point.
Bro,
JTB, I'm not your bro, dude. Define belief right now.
JTB.
It's just so belief is justified true belief. You fucking retard.
So you're a fucking retard.
Dude, I go to talk and you talk over me. What are you gonna do?
You're a fucking retard.
Dude, it's
dude,
knowledge,
I'm not your fucking dude.
Accepting knowledge, accepting truth.
Accepting knowledge.
Belief is accepting truth, bro. And the way that you accept that as true
12 minutes after the hour from Oxford Dictionaries. Shut your fucking mouth. Belief, Oxford Dictionaries, an acceptance that something exists or is true, especially one without proof. From your alma mater wiki. Belief is the state of mind in which a person thinks something is to shut up. It's the state of mind in which a person... This motherfucker. Put him on mute. You're done. Bye-bye, lard ass. You don't know what the words that you're using mean, dude.
Okay, can I talk? Let me know when I can talk.
Time of death? No. You're the dumbest fucker in here. We're going to cordon you off.
So bro, I get it, dude. I understand. I understand the resistance.
You've been exposed. Mae West is in the corner belly laughing. You dumb fuck. You're not going to get to talk anymore. No. Dumb fuck. Retard.
Look, you're mixing and matching ideas again. Justified true belief is something within philosophy that was refuted, as Huey said, back in the 70s. Because justified is the state of the human mind, and what that actually means is subjective, so it's just a bunch of nonsense.
Actually was refuted and changed to justified true belief. It wasn't refuted.
Oh, so we do it. What does well mean? That's another human evaluation that is subjective. There's no objective metric of well justified.
Then you have no absolutes in your worldview.
What?
How about facts?
Holy fuck, dude.
He's a retard, man. You're a retard, dude.
Okay, so if I don't believe in a subjective metric for believing something, then I have no absolutes. No, that's the exact opposite of that. I'm rejecting the subjective metric, dude.
Okay, so then go ahead and prove reality exists outside your mind.
Okay, so I don't start from the internal critique. I start from the external world. So the internal evaluation. Do you want me to actually send you something on this? From PhD in philosophy? You won't understand it, but I'll send it to you anyway.
What's your justification for starting from the external?
It's refuted Descartes nonsense, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry. Descartes been refuted.
Okay, what's your justification for starting with the external versus the internal?
What's your justification for starting with the internal
argument, bro. Give the argument.
Because there is no internal without the external first.
Okay, prove it.
Dude, anything you think, it has to come externally.
How do you know that?
Otherwise, you're
holy shit.
Because otherwise you're bootstrapping from nothing. Nothing plus nothing, 0 plus 0 is still 0, bro.
Nothing can exist.
What the hell?
Or is it no thing?
There's a difference between no thing and nothing. Fucking idiot goober over here in the land of misfit toys. What the fuck is his name again? Who was that?
Die slow.
Die slow. What an ass clown. You guys are right in that vicinity of fucking reasonability. Two guys are clowns, man. It's time to go back there. Go home. You're way above your pay grade here, sons. Define natural. I don't have to define. Define natural. I don't have to define natural. You'd have to. Axioms are self-evident.
And you think begging the question of the external world just exists, therefore I start with the external.
If the external world doesn't exist, you're talking to yourself right now, and you're having an argument with yourself about the external.
This is your argument, not mine, bro. I'm just holding the mirror up for you.
And I said there would be nothing for the internal world to act upon if there was no external world.
That's begging the question.
That isn't begging the question.
You haven't justified the external world's existence yet, and you're using the external world as proof of the external world. That's textbook begging the question.
No. What is the internal world?
Can I talk now, dude? Like, am I going to get muted again?
No, you're the dumbest person in here.
So when it comes to beliefs, when it comes to beliefs, we've been taught that we've. When it comes to beliefs, that we blindly believe things without reason, without.
Jesus fucking Christ. She's just going to steamroll his way? I don't think so. What is the internal world, dude?
From my worldview?
Whatever way you want to characterize it.
Yeah, the internal world, consciousness, it would be God-given. It would be something that we know the external world exists apart from because God laid that out in Genesis 1.
That's
a true justification.
So what is the internal world acting upon? How is it forming its structure, its conclusions, anything within it?
God.
Oh, God. So if there was just God and there was no external world, you'd have thoughts about things that don't exist.
I wouldn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about. They just said if it's just God and there's nothing else.
No, you said
God wouldn't exist.
If there's just God, you'd have an internal world.
No, I said God is what is created the internal world.
You're using the Bible, which is external. Thank you.
It's revelatory. It's
Revealed
divine
through what?
intervention. It's
Revealed
divine
through what?
intervention.
The external world? Or was it internal?
It was revealed divinely by the God himself.
Externally or internally?
Externally and internally. Both. You know how you know it's wrong to murder? Yeah, that's internal. And it's been written on your heart by God.
Murder who? Something in the external world? Or something in your internal world?
Yeah, it's even wrong to think bad thoughts about
there'd be no such thing as murder. You're just feeling some hallucination you have.
I'm not having the hallucination. I've established why the internal and external world are separate and how I know they are. See, that's something you haven't done yet.
Yeah, they are separate, but you don't even have an internal world without an external world. And we know this, you know why? Because there's people in primitive vegetative states that have no fucking thoughts, but they respond to external stimuli.
Yeah.
My job. See you later.
Yeah, but those people, like neurologists, have studied that. Yeah, the mind doesn't have to be in the brain.
How are they responding to external stimuli when there's no internal fucking world?
How do you know that? How do you know there's no internal world? What, did you go inside the person's head?
You're a clown, dude.
I don't know if I want to continue this.
No, don't. It's a waste of time.
Done.
Did I go inside?
He's already been exposed.
They did go inside the person's head. They hook up fucking little electrodes and nothing happened. It's dead matter.
The person's dead, but they're responding to external.
They're brain dead. That's what we call it. Brain dead.
That doesn't mean their mind is gone. Unless you're saying the mind transcends the brain, then I'd love evidence and justification for that. Do you think the mind is in the brain? What's your evidence for that?
I don't think the mind is in the brain.
Uniformity in nature.
I don't think the mind is in the brain.
Okay, then why are you saying a brain-dead person doesn't have an internal world if the mind isn't in the brain?
He was just appealing to the uniformity in nature, Indio, and then ask, how can you confirm the external world, you fucking glue sniffer?
Yeah, you don't have an explanation for
Look at him, yeah, you don't have an axiom, you dumb fuck. You just contradicted yourself. You're a fucking clown, dude. Go back to romper room.
You don't know what an internal critique is.
Go back to romper room, dumb fuck. Don't ask me.
You don't understand. You don't understand the argument you're trying to parrot.
Yep.
I know what argument you're trying to parrot. You're trying to parrot the tag argument. It's specifically Jay Dyer's, but you're fucking butchering it.
Not even close to Jay Dyer's, bro. What are you talking about? Greg Bronson has laid this argument. Van Til had this argument way before Jay Dyer.
Uniformity in nature. And then ask, how do you confirm the external world? You fucking glue sniffer. That's what you just did. Mr. Uniformity in nature, all out of context, red herring fallacy for like
20
fucking minutes. 20 fucking minutes.
Problem with induction.
And then ask Indio, how does he confirm? How do you validate the external world? You glue.
Because he doesn't come from my worldview, obviously.
You're a dumb fuck. Your worldview, what? Retard.
Oh, the Christian worldview, bro. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right. You're a dumb fuck, dude.
Yeah, you can persecute me. That's okay.
I just demonstrated it.
Hey, Quantos, is this how you debate in your reality? Take your fucking medicine. Calm your ass down.
Hey, Quant, shut the fuck up. Who the fuck are you?
This guy has a problem with induction.
Shut up, Torah. I'm going to mute Torah. I'm going to get the Macintoshes dumbass.
Yo, Quantum, you better be a good boy before
Shut the fuck up. I better be what?
Come on. Come on. No, I'm not trying to.
Can we get back on? I want to get back on topic, dude.
Yeah, you guys, hold on. I want to just add something, if I may. Okay, you need to look up the lore here. Quantum had debated globalists for years, using logic, reason, tried to get them to engage in the topic. All they threw was shit. They threw shit into shit into shit, and finally, Quantum's giving you back what you put out there, and now you don't like it suddenly. Fix yourself. Why don't you clean your house before you tell someone else to clean their own house?
Wait, he needs to be a good boy first, though.
No, you. Yeah. Why don't you go back and...
The coward Mr. Macintosh fucking boot scooted quick. Okay, xbreezy, go ahead, crit. And then Indio.
No, I wasn't trying to...
If you're going to appeal to tone, make sure you know what the fuck you're talking about and who threw shit first. At some point, as a Christian, you stop turning the other cheek. You're out of cheeks to turn.
What's your problem, Nancy? xbreezy, they've contradicted themselves with every fucking breath for the past hour. So
I wasn't here for the beginning of it. I don't know.
So they not only do that, they want to continue speaking after they've been demonstrated to be abject retards. And then they'll overtake the mic and never stop talking. That's what's going on here.
Yeah, I can't really say anything meaningful that would make this conversation better or anything like that. All I can really say is just, if you say this and the other person thinks that, then, and there's no meaningful way to come to a conclusion, then there's nothing really productive happening between two parties. I'd say, what's your conversation, at least?
Yeah, there's no conversation because they're abject retards. You can't have a conversation with somebody that's retarded.
In all fairness, I didn't really hear what they say. I just wanted to advocate for civility. I'm not saying that what you were doing was wrong or anything like that, but just
Well, there is no conversation with people that contradict themselves, xbreezy.
Let me give you an example of the contradiction. He said natural logic. We asked him to define nature, and then I asked him where does logic exist in nature, and he says it doesn't. Okay, so we're dealing with crap like that, dude. That's retarded.
Oh yeah. So you asked him to define natural logic, and negative. Sorry, can you repeat what you said?
We asked him to. He said natural logic. We asked him to define natural, but then he wouldn't. So I asked him, where does logic exist in nature? And he said, it doesn't. So you have natural logic that doesn't exist in nature. Now tell me if that's a contradiction or not.
Yeah, I don't honestly know what they meant for natural logic.
Well, I mean, that's objectively a contradiction, right? Objectively. It's not our opinion. And they've been doing it nonstop for an hour.
If you ask me, if you say natural logic exists and you define whatever you may define, right? Are you saying it doesn't exist?
No, he said natural logic, not natural laws. He said natural logic.
No, that's what I said. Natural logic, not natural laws. I said natural logic. But
logic doesn't exist in nature. It's not growing somewhere out of the ground.
The point is, they kept on contradicting themselves, right? And then overtake the mic. Then cry and whine that we're treating them badly for contradicting themselves.
No, I get it. If you think that they're just contradicting themselves and just going in circles and stuff, you feel frustrated by it.
Can't get anywhere.
So both sides, I think, should make attempts to get productive. You know what I mean, right? Like, you just if it becomes a rant, it's just a rant, and you guys are not really trying to bring understanding to one another. Maybe a little bit, but you're trying to listen to each other, right? That's what this channel's for. That's why we're all here. I don't know. I've heard that this channel's mainly just to. It's not necessarily a debate channel or anything like that, but I heard it's just people for other places too. Yeah, for people to get in contact with the flat earth community and flat earth community, no conversion each other. I also know you guys your own Discord and stuff. So
can't have
we're listening to them. We're listening to them very closely.
Very closely,
and they're just talking jabberwocky gibberish right out of freaking Alice's hole.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then they complain right out the gate. It's fucking jabberwocky gibberish, as Indio said, right out the gate, which is their premise. But they complain about being interrupted because they want their jabby walker gibberish to be their premise. But it's faulty to begin with. So what do you want us to do? Listen to everything from the jabberwocky gibberish, logical fallacy horseshit as their main premise, and travel down that trail of incoherency till the end after about 8 minutes? We ain't gonna do that.
No. It's you can be frustrated. I understand why you'd be frustrated by then.
Well, hold up, dude, real quick. Also, this conversation with Lion took a week to set up. Literally a week.
It took a week for this conversation to set up?
It took a week to get him in here to talk about this. He's been duck, dive, dodge, and dip, and dodge for a week to get him in here. And then when he finally gets in here, he doesn't even try to be responsive.
Yep.
It's dude, at some point you're just going to say, why the fuck do you keep wasting everyone's time? It takes a week to get you to do anything. You finally, on your terms...
bearing false witness, bro.
On your terms, we get you in here, and you don't even try. You're I get it, he's a long-haul truck driver. He's got a schedule he's got to do. But at some point, it's just say, hey, I'm not interested. Why sit there and rug pull day after day after day when you're not even going to be responsive to begin with?
Oh, I don't know. People have their reasons for it.
Yeah, that's why I see now you get the reasons why someone will be frustrated about it too.
Yeah, no. I never made the point that you should not be frustrated, But all things aside, civility is something that everybody wants, right? You want to talk to each other in a normal manner and stuff, and that's a nice thing to have, right?
Really?
Yeah, no.
Where were you back in 2016 when I was being called names that would make a billy goat puke and fucking told to drink bleach. Where were you then?
All right, be a good boy. Be a good boy, Joe.
No. I'm not. Dude, if somebody says awful shit about you, and it's like, even like when people are telling you to drink bleach, that kind of stuff, like first of all, like there's all sorts of reasons why people would say that kind of shit, right? But like in general, the good thing, quote unquote, to do is to not get to that point and to not like, do that kind of behavior. So I don't think you should drink bleach. I don't think, like.
Here, listen, too. You missed another context. So
Right.
like a couple Fridays ago, Lion was in here, not this channel, a different one, calling Nathan Coakley, kept implying that he's using drugs. He's not making any sense. He's like a crack addict. And you're like, dude, why are you asked him, why are you acting like this? He just said because he just wants to make him yell. So you've already got somebody in here who's admitted in the past that their goal is to get someone to get an emotional reaction. It takes them a while to get in here. Yeah, full court trolling.
Yeah, just trolling,
Yeah, so I think if you wanted to give a critique, give both sides some kind of positive feedback loop rather than just, hey, I don't think what's happening here is in spirit of whatever you think the channel is.
He also monologues forever. He goes on and on and on, and he's like highly emotional. He just gives anxiety with the tone of his voice.
And then when you interrupt him, why dost thou interrupt me? What the fuck?
I'm guilty of it too sometimes, when I feel like, I get what people are trying to say and stuff, and sometimes I'm wrong for it too, because what I think they're going to say is actually something different, and then, I'm just basically, holding my dick in my hands, basically at that point. But, like some people just interrupt because they get what you mean, or they think that the premise that you're saying is false, all sorts of reasons. I cannot really say what was going on in here, but, yeah, I'm not going to say that I don't do it myself often, and I allow other people to do it too. But obviously, you can also be quite disruptive if you do it all the time, or you do it in a manner that is disruptive. Yeah. Which is,
I think we beat this one to death. What's your position on the Earth, sir?
Me?
Yep.
Well, thanks to the flat Earth community, I if I want to say that the Earth is round or it's flat, I have to make my, I would have to first do all my research in order to come to a conclusion. But, I am not wrong with believing that the Earth is round. Let's just say that.
Well, round and flat aren't mutually exclusive. I know it sounds pedantic, but it's important.
Yeah, or a globe. Because I operate on, on the ideas that were just, told to me a very long time ago.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that these things that were told to me were done forcefully or done in a manner that they're trying to indoctrinate me, right? Because I have access to you guys too, right? Because I'm not saying that they could not, even if people are trying to indoctrinate you, they cannot physically restrict you from gaining access from the from other people, right? Like in this case, you guys. But yeah, no, I just hang out over here and just, I'm trying to listen for most of the time, and I'm trying to use the knowledge that I know right now. And I'm not really a guy that, how do you say this? I've done some research, if you would call it. I've done some digging into, but really that's just looking into YouTube videos. I'm just curious about the experiments done. What experiments can do, what they're conclusive of, this and that, all that jabber. And the reason why I find you guys so interesting is because, there's a lot of people that that believe in their religion and that are very, that are very into their religion, and they believe that their religion is descriptive of reality. But you guys do it in another way, right? Like this is also kind of an attack on how I would put it in this channel as mainstream science. I just call it science, but this is mainstream science. So you guys are going against that, and that's just what interests me a lot to see how you operate.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
The people that told you that the Earth was a globe, teachers, whoever, do you think they actually know one way or another?
What do you mean? That they know?
The people that told you, that quote unquote educated you, hey kid, Earth is a globe. Do you think that they know?
Oh, that they know that it is actually something else, or that they
know that it's a globe. Do you think that You think they just believe it's a globe, or that they know it's a globe?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know what the first moon was that I found out the Earth was round. It had more to do with people explaining to me that back in the old days, the Earth looks flat, and for the longest of times, we thought that the Earth was flat, and then they came to the understanding that the Earth was actually a round or a globe Earth. That's just how history went.
Yeah, I understand that, but say your first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade teachers, high school teachers, university professors, do you think that they know one way or another, or they're just repeating what they heard?
Yeah, they would probably use references to other experiments done by other people, that kind of stuff. So I think in that sense, yes. I don't know if somebody personally in my life that did measurements in order to determine the shape of the Earth. I don't know any astronauts either, that claim to have gone to space.
Well, could we stop there?
So that answers questions like.
Hold on a second, Indio. I'm going to have to go. I got book responsibilities. I got to go help write the book. Just because I've heard you say it a number of times, natural science and the scientific method only deal with natural cause and effect relationships. It has nothing to do with shapes. This is this is not a scientific topic. It's purely geometry. So be careful with your experiments and stuff. Right off.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe I have to be clearer on what I mean when I use these terms, right? So, feel free to ask me, because I don't want to operate on assumptions and figure out at the end of the rope that we're operating on different assumptions and understanding. So, definitely worthy to be clear on what I'm trying to say. Of course, what I mean by science.
No, you're fine. What he's trying to tell you is that people often frame this as a scientific question, and that's because it's been mischaracterized as one by the education system.
Yeah.
It's just mischaracterization.
Yeah. So if you ask what my understanding is, do you want to get into that, or I don't know what I was discussing earlier? Oh yeah, we're talking about the people in my environment, whether or not they have
whether they have knowledge versus belief. That's really the question. The people that told you, do they have knowledge? Do they know it's a globe, or do they just believe it? And what you'll find out is that they just believe it. They're like you. They heard it from somebody else, and they believe that the words that person told them, and that person heard it from somebody else, and they believe the words that person told them. But in our experience, we go down the chain, we can never find the person that has actual knowledge.
Well, maybe if I have to operate on things that could be a reason. Maybe somebody figured it out. And they had evidence, and the evidence was provided, and from then on, it wasn't just people who were exposed to that understanding doing the actual what is the rightful thing to do. In all of science, I would say is to. And if you want to ask me what science means to me, of course, go ahead. What the rightful thing is to get empirical evidence and you correlate correctly to the observations that you're making, and the other things that are happening too, if they are relevant, So yeah, but I do think
what I'm trying to point out, and what Huey's pointing out, is that this topic within the education system itself is mischaracterized as something it's not. It's purely just a geometry question. If you go, what's the shape of X, right? The answer is a geometry question. It isn't freaking science. So an example of this could be like, if you bought a house and you walk in your brand new kitchen and you're like, I don't know if that floor is a square or a rectangle. You would not call a scientist to figure that out.
No. But I would say.
You see what I'm saying? This is just purely geometry. Purely geometry has there's no science involved.
Yeah, I would say maybe not an empirical science in that sense necessarily, because for me, what science means is
it's empirical. Collective. It's empirical, dude. Taking a measurement is empirical. Right?
Yeah. You could definitely do that. Yeah, of course. That's why I was a little careful in saying necessarily. Also and definitely, if you're looking at the shape of the Earth, you need to have empirical data at the end of the day, to say what the reality is. Not like in mathematics, where you can start with a set of axioms and then operate on logical consequences of whatever you've constructed. but what I wanted to say was what science means for me is just the collective understanding of reality, and then I would always be inclined to say quote unquote reality, because for me reality is just the things that come to my senses, that are from my senses. It's also a vague thing by itself, I would say. But that's like that really goes into the whole of what is am I seeing, am I observing the things to be true, right? Obviously that's that by itself is just that by itself is also a discussion, because otherwise there wouldn't be a flat earth community and there wouldn't be a global earth community, because both sides are making claims about what reality is, right? So there's definitely a disagreement in understanding of reality out there, if anything. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd say you're off to a good start of figuring out what the truth is. Half the problem people have is they don't have the tools to figure out what the truth is in the first place. So we can give them all the information available. They just don't have the tools to evaluate what's true or not, and they just default to, well, I think everybody thinks this, so I'm going to go with that, right? Or the authorities say, or everybody thinks, or my mama told me, or I saw it on TV, or you know what I mean? They just default to that because they don't have the tools to figure out what the truth actually is. But to even doubt, well, let me just finish. To even doubt, to even think the Earth's a globe, you have to doubt your initial impressions of what the Earth is. You have to say, hey, I see it as flat. I don't feel like I'm moving, but somehow that's wrong and incorrect. And I'm perceiving reality incorrectly, and it's actually this other thing, a spinning ball. Right? So you just from get-go, you have to assume that your perception of reality is false.
Yeah, it's always important.
Now it could be. Now I'm not saying it isn't. It could be false, right? Could be.
Yeah.
But the other side is someone's going to come along and say everything's an illusion. Then they need to prove it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, of course. No, I think you and I would both agree that if you don't make any claim, you have nothing to prove, really. So you don't have a burden of proof. But if you make any claim whatsoever, true or false, then you have a burden of proof, right?
Yeah, well, my claim is, what you see is what you get. Go outside, it looks flat. That's the way it is. That's my claim. Like, how are you going to argue with that? The only argument you can make is that your senses are flawed. You're an ant on a giant fucking ball. You can't perceive it as a ball because it's just a ball too big to see. I mean, but the thing is, that's a claim. Okay, now demonstrate it, dude.
Yeah.
We don't because I could also say, well, it's also a giant pineapple too big to see, or it's a giant starfish, or it's a giant, freaking, lemon square. Like you could say anything. You know what I mean? If someone's going to claim it's something different than what you experience, they need to provide the evidence that that's the case.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. That's just a good way to go on about things in life, right? Because, I mean, that's an effective way to do things that are in the benefit of us, right? So let's just say, if the Earth was like flat, right? Okay, I would have to clarify something. I know I'm saying, what if the Earth was flat? I'm saying that because I'm operating from like a neutral point of view. I would say the same thing as like, what if the Earth was a globe, right? So don't try to conflate it to something like, I have an argument against flat Earth. Just as a disclaimer, I'm saying this, by the way. Anyway, okay, I feel really stupid because I was trying to make a point. Did you help me remember?
It's fine. Listen, a lot of people that we deal with, even people with degrees and PhDs in physics, astrophysics, cosmology, they don't know this topic any better than what you'd ask somebody that has a 9th grade high school education. Everybody had just accepted it at a young age, and beyond that, they don't really know about it. So I wouldn't feel like, oh shit, I don't know anything. Like there are no globe experts in this shit except for the flat earthers, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It really is just crazy. It's like the flat earthers are the experts in globe earth because we're examining it. We're saying, hey, the globe earth predicts this. The globe earth says that. The globe earth says all these other things. Is this true? We're going to go test it.
Yeah, sorry. Just excuse me for a second. I'm just gonna make some coffee and I'm gonna take off. I'm just trying to warn you that I cannot stay online forever. But because what I want to say quickly, sorry, if you had something really smart to say, go right ahead. But I just wanted to like ask something. But go right ahead if you definitely had something to say.
No, you go. You go. Whatever.
Yeah. No, so okay. I think this is going to be I think I'm going to talk a lot, but in a short time. But what I was thinking was that why do people have such a disapproval against flat earthers? Because I would also like if you asked me back in the day, this dude is a fucking this dude doesn't believe that the earth is round. Like I don't necessarily think that. I believe not all flat earthers think that the earth is flat. They just deny that the shape of the earth is a globe. Am I correct? Is that true in this case, or do you guys like also claim
Earth is flat?
Yeah, but we don't consider them flat earthers. We consider them globe skeptics.
Oh, okay, all right. So are you guys mostly globe skeptics, or are you guys flat earthers?
No, I'm definitely flat earthers. I would say I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I would say most people in here are flat earthers.
But like flat earthers are a subset of like globe skeptics, right? That they claim what you guys have in common.
I mean, kind of, but not really, because
in any way, you guys don't say that the earth is a globe, right?
To me, like a globe skeptic would mean I accepted the globe and then I doubted it. Where, at least for me, it's like I just accept what I see, and then the globe is not even entertained until there's evidence. There's nothing to be skeptical about.
Well,
then you have the other one, which is the concaver.
Like Hitchens' razor, that's what I do. So it's like this, what can be asserted without evidence can be rejected without evidence. I don't have to be skeptical of shit without evidence.
Sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying. Can you repeat what you said?
I don't have to be. I'm not skeptical of things without evidence, right?
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to say that. Okay, maybe this was bad for my part. I think what I was trying to say is that you guys.
I would say that. Well, what I'm trying to tell you is that they're independent things. I don't think they're linked.
Yeah, no, but what you guys have in common is that you definitely believe that the Earth is not a globe, right? That's the safe thing to say, right?
Yeah.
No, we don't believe it.
No. We don't believe it. We know the Earth is flat, stationary, immovable, and contained.
Yeah, okay, so
we can prove it too.
Okay, but then if I ask you, is the Earth round, then you would say no.
No, right? I already told you before. Round and flat aren't mutually exclusive. You got to be specific with your language. You can have a round and flat penny, LP, CD. You got that right.
Okay, the Earth is not a globe. Right.
Yeah, the Earth is flat, stationary, and contained.
Yeah,
we can prove that. Relax. We can prove that. We know it. We don't believe it.
No, listen. Okay, let me specify something.
Hold on, dude. Hold on. You say, well, it's not a globe. Listen, you can't have a flat globe, so obviously it's not a globe.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I think I didn't say something about. Did I say flat globe? Okay, never mind.
No, we're just like reconfirming because we think it's flat. We're denying it's a globe. Yeah, an affirmative claim that it's flat is de facto denying it's a globe because there can't be a flat globe.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just a little confused. Anyway, no. What I just have to clarify something. When I say that you guys believe in a flat Earth, I'm not. No, wait. Hold on. Let me specify. Okay. If you were to ask me, is the sky blue? Right. Like if I go outside, and just simple truth, right? I would say, yeah, I believe that the sky is blue. That's just my conviction of reality, and I'm saying that your conviction of reality is different.
That? Why would you need to believe that if you're looking up and the sky's blue?
Okay. I'm using that word because we have different understandings of what the truth is, right? You're saying that that's the truth, and I'm saying something else is true. In a hypothetical context.
No.
Okay.
You know the difference between believing.
You're saying that it might not be true the sky's blue, even though you see a blue sky?
No. What I mean to say is the way I use my language is that even if I know something to be factually true, right? Like something that is just. It's just truth, right? I would still use the word, that's what I believe in. Because I think, like you can I think believing in something requires, like, you have some people that say, yes, I believe in this, but it could also possibly be false. All those kinds of nuances and stuff. But I'm not saying that. I'm not saying. I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing against your belief, or I mean against your understanding.
You need to get belief out of your vernacular, because words mean things. And when you say a word, then we must agree on that meaning so we can have meaningful conversation and discussion. When you say believe, that's acceptance without evidence. That makes no sense.
Okay, that's not what I mean.
The sky is blue. You have evidence. You're looking at it.
No, that's not.
Belief is the enemy of knowledge.
Yeah. That's not what I'm trying to say.
That's not what I was trying to say. But okay.
Well,
let me tell you. I'm going to reiterate. Belief is the enemy of knowledge. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you guys think that the word believe means that it is conviction without evidence, or like can you repeat what you said?
It's how it's defined.
It's defined. It's right inside chat, by the way.
Okay.
It says especially without evidence, so it is a minutia, like it is a little pedantic.
It really isn't, dude. They're really like almost opposite things. Belief and knowledge are like opposite things.
Yes.
Yeah, because Crow told you so. Yeah, I get it.
Crow. Torah, shut your fucking mouth. We had enough of you earlier.
Wait. Okay. So
they're back. The Goober brothers are back. Shut the fuck up. He's having a conversation with Breezy. Shut up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Indio.
When I'm in a conversation with you guys, so I don't really have like the evidence for me to say that I believe that the Earth is flat, but like I think the word "believe" is just differently interpreted, because yes, some people. Wait. Just give me a breather. Just give me.
It's not.
Okay.
You're using it out of context again.
Okay. Can you repeat again what the word "believe" means?
I'll do more than that. I'll post citations for it. How about that?
I'm not.
Not what I think. Not what I think.
Just read it out loud.
Not what I think. It's defined as.
Announced it.
Not what I think.
Okay, so dude, if I ask you what's your favorite color, do you know that or do you believe that?
Yeah, no, I believe that. Yeah, I believe that.
You believe your own mind? You have to it might not be true.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that that's what I'm convinced into thinking. I'm trying to use the word belief without
Who convinced you? Yourself? Like, who convinced you? Yourself? Let's say your favorite color thread. You wouldn't believe that. You would know that. You know what your own favorite color is. You know your own mind, right?
No. If I have a favorite color, I'm not arguing with myself. I'm not trying to convince myself that that's my favorite color. That's not what I mean. I'm just saying.
You would know that, right?
Yeah.
And you probably know that you ate today, or ate this week, or ate this year, right? You know that. You don't believe that.
But here's the issue that I have, right? So if you say, for instance, you make any statement and you think it's true, is that a safe thing to say? If you think it's true and somebody else thinks it's not,
knowledge is based upon like experience, right? So anything you experience, you know, 100%, you know it. Like what you ate, when you ate, last time you ate, who your parents are. Well, I mean, that might not be true. You could be adopted.
I say the same thing. I say the same thing about people who have conducted experiments and came to the conclusion that the Earth is a globe. I would say that they.
There we go again.
It's
that's
not
a category error. You don't do experiments that discover shapes. That's a category error, dude.
But if knowledge comes from observation,
and they have to be interpreted. Okay.
I'm probably using it
now. The result of the experiment. Listen, the result of the experiment is knowledge. Okay. The interpretation, the conclusion of the experiment, that could be belief in the colloquial sense of experiment, not in the sense of scientific experiment. Scientific experiments don't tell you what the shape of the Earth is.
Okay, I think that when people are using the word belief, it does not necessarily mean that they have that they think something which is not necessarily proven. That's not what I think. I'm just like I said. This is just semantics. This is just arguing what words.
Nope, not semantics. This is the Socratic method. I told you before. In order for us to have meaningful conversation, we use the Socratic method. That means we have to define our terms. Now, not every single term, not if, and, are, was, were, right? But without that, we can't communicate. It's called the Socratic method. Have you heard of it before? Semantics, yeah, you're right. And?
Yeah, right? Yeah. There's a Roman maxim that says to distinguish well is to learn well, right? So if we distinguish belief from knowledge,
I'll do it.
We have a better context from which to evaluate what reality is, right? So you can't just use them interchangeably because they're not the same thing. They distinguish two different states of mind.
I have it in chat. Hold on, relax. I have it in chat at 56 minutes after the hour. What belief is and what knowledge is. Do we want to go through these?
Okay. I'm saying is that people who claim to have knowledge...
we want to go through these, or you're going to continue to talk?
Bro, I don't even know what's going on.
Look, I said, listen closely. I posted in chat at 56 minutes after the hour the difference between belief and knowledge. Do we want to go through these?
Let me see. I'll look it up.
56 minutes after the hour.
Posted.
What?
I'll look it up.
No, I'll just look at the links, right? Is that what you want me to do, dude?
Look up the links? No. Just read it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
So knowledge deals with fact. It's all factual information.
Yeah.
From Oxford Dictionary, knowledge, facts, information, and skills acquired, like Indio said, through experience or education. These things are facts. Beliefs aren't facts. They're antithetical to each other.
I was not trying to undermine you guys in any shape or form, No, I wasn't trying to do that. I wasn't trying to misuse words, trying to trick you guys into Okay.
We know that.
If that's the definition of the word, you guys very strictly use, then sure, okay, I'm not going to argue against that. But it's
a defining fallacy. It's a defining fallacy.
Okay, I'm saying it's hard for me. It's hard for me to talk about things on how people think. Right? I would have to use different words for it, but I can do it. Sure, I can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay, sure. So
listen. If you use belief and knowledge as the same thing, if someone says, "Hey, I believe in ghosts," and someone says, "Hey, I believe that's a nice car," how do you distinguish between the two?
Yeah, no, that's right. But it's just for me the word meant for me the word, not necessarily what the Oxford English Dictionary said, right? For me the word meant just an understanding of reality. That's what I was saying. But okay, if that confuses you guys,
I mean, don't feel bad. We have to do this a lot, so it's not you're not.
No, okay, no. I usually don't have a problem using the word in this way, and most people, understand me. But if it's different for you guys, of course, then I'll not use a word that you guys interpret differently. Even if it's even if it's
our interpretation. It's
not an interpretation.
Yeah, okay. If it's on the English,
keep saying that we're making up the definition and we're using.
No. That's not what I'm trying to say. No,
you're going,
right.
Hey, Oxford Dictionary, what's this mean in the English?
Yeah, you go. No, okay, you're right. You Google
so xbreezy, you understand? We're going to use the proper terms and the proper definitions of words when we discuss here. That's how we like it.
No, I know. This is not something. You guys make up.
You can proceed with your point or your question with that understanding. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. Fair enough. I'm going to be honest. I was making comments.
You just spoke for 10 minutes about the word belief and knowledge. This is why it's an issue. It's like I remember, because the issue is you'll say things like, so you believe in the flat earth? No. We go outside and there it is. Not belief.
Okay. All I'm saying is that also other people, how do you want me to address the people that claim otherwise? How would you like me to address that?
People who believe in the globe, whatever. Globeheads, globetards.
Okay.
Whatever word you prefer.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, all right. Bill, since we're talking about the definition of the word, I was saying something about people looking at, people who understand that the earth is flat. When I look back at how people used to respond, like what the stereotypical thought was, if I would say so, if you were to say that, I think that the earth is flat. I have evidence that the earth is flat. People would be discouraged about you. They would be disapproved. They would say mean things. I think that has to do with like people thinking of flat earthers that thinking like those are people that just stuck back in time. They never really progressed in the knowledge of the understanding of the world. So I think that's where the hostility mainly comes from. Not necessarily people, doing their own research, shooting balloons.
That's ironic. Look, we know why it is.
That's ironic.
Okay, let me make this point real quick. So what they think is we don't understand the globe, and that's why we don't believe it. That we're too dumb or can't comprehend it, so we don't believe it because we're ignorant. And that's far from the truth.
Yeah, which is funny because the concept that we're the archaic ones, whenever we ask them who's measured the Earth to be evolved, they tell us about some guy in 300 BC who planted sticks in the ground. Sounds pretty archaic to me.
That's what I think is just going on, but I think otherwise right now. I don't think as you guys like saying that you guys are. I don't think like that. I don't think that you guys were stuck in time. You think that the old beliefs are true. You never progress or anything like that. That's far from it. When I look at the work that you guys done, I mean that's just not something you do overnight, right? It takes effort into making statements, trying to connect the points, come to the conclusion, and also doing measurements. So, and you also see that when you also see that when you look at videos of astronomers talking to flat earthers, when they're saying that they're not necessarily being how do you say this? They don't insult people, but they're like, okay, well, I think that your understanding is just done in a way that I do not think is,
Well, astronomers, astronomers specifically are demonstrable pseudoscientists, along with astrophysicists and cosmologists. So we really don't care what they have to say. This is not a scientific topic anyway. Follow?
Right. Yeah, they think they are doing science, right? So that's
they can think whatever they want. We can demonstrate that they're pseudoscientists.
I'm actually curious, like how would you demonstrate that? Could you?
Yes. Yep. Here's what I would do, Mr. Astronomer. Please provide one valid scientific hypothesis in the entire history of your discipline, and I can prosecution rest and laugh my way all the way home. Because he's finished.
Isn't a hypothesis a prediction of what might happen, and not necessarily a claim to what is happening?
It's a predictional supposition in the natural cause and effect relationships, and they can't even formulate one valid hypothesis. Not a single one.
So wait, could you just repeat what the definition hypothesis meant when you were saying it?
It's a predictional supposition into natural cause and effect relationships.
Okay. I'm gonna be a little nerdy, but you said preposition, right?
I said what?
You said preposition, right? You used the word preposition in your definition.
No, I said it's a predictional supposition
Oh yeah, supposition. Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I meant supposition. What does supposition mean again?
Supposition has a meaning. It's tentative. It's suppositional. It's I don't know how you can define it. It's provisional. Tentative.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
All right.
Because,
yeah, it's just.
Yeah. So they can't formulate a scientific hypothesis. Now, they can observe a natural phenomenon. They can get a dependent variable. That's no problem. However, they cannot obtain a viable independent variable. To have an independent variable, they must be able to manipulate it to cause the effect. That is, to cause the dependent variable. They can't do that. They can never get to experiment. So without hypothesis or experiment, you are demonstrable pseudoscience if you're claiming that you're science to begin with. You follow that?
I have to admit, I have a hard time following what you were trying to say. Not to be mean or anything like that.
Well, just, in order to have scientific evidence, it has to be validated by experiment. In order to have an experiment, you have to have a viable scientific hypothesis. They can't get to the viable scientific hypothesis part. So no experiments. So not science at all. Zero.
The viable.
Listen, I can help you understand maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, say an astronomer, they look up, they see the sun. They want to know what causes sun flares. Now, what experiment can they do to demonstrate the cause of sun flares?
Oh, sun flares. You mean the phenomenon where you see
solar flares, right? So
solar flares, right?
The phenomenon's not important. Whatever the phenomenon is, you can say black holes, fucking solar flares. You can say whatever. They look up in the sky with a telescope and they see something. How are they going to do an experiment to determine the cause of that thing that they see, the observed natural phenomenon that they see? What experiment can they do?
I don't necessarily think that they would try. Like, if you were to ask me, I don't necessarily think that. Yeah, of course, it's always 100% better if you have an experiment to prove a claim that you're making about reality. That's definitely a really good thing to do. But I don't think scientists.
It's required.
Required.
Required. That's the word you left out.
Non-optional.
Okay. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not doing science. You ask them to prove it's pseudoscience. They can't do the experiment. They're not doing science.
Okay, I don't think it blocks scientists, however, to try and make a.
You're finished. It does. 8 minutes after the hour. Are you in the text chat? We're going to go through this real quick.
No, wait. I'm just talking with my fancy coffee mug and just listening to you guys. I'm not reading anything like that.
Okay, so I'll read it for you. I'll read it for you then. University of Rochester Physics Labs. The scientific method requires that a hypothesis be ruled out or modified if its predictions are clearly and repeatedly incompatible with experimental tests.
Okay.
Further, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. Let me finish. Okay.
You don't have to be loud. You don't have to be loud. Just chill out.
Well,
right?
just stop interrupting me then. It's fucking rude, isn't it? So I'll start over. University of Rochester Physics Labs. The scientific method requires that a hypothesis be ruled out or modified if its predictions are clearly and repeatedly incompatible with experimental tests. Further, no matter how elegant a theory is, its predictions must agree with experimental results if we are to believe that it is valid description in nature. In physics, as in every experimental science, which is redundant, experiment is supreme, and experimental verification of hypothetical predictions is absolutely necessary. That's from University of Rochester Physics Labs. Now let's take a look at cosmology.
But I was trying to.
Now let's take a look at cosmology. Relax.
Okay, I'm not interested in talking to you. I'm sorry.
I'm not interested in talking to you, but I'm interested in exposing you. Now shut the fuck up.
It was nice talking to you guys.
Shut up.
I cannot really carry on this conversation.
Don't worry, BZ. They'll just gaslight you for about a half hour after this.
You little
but it's like he was loud and
imbecile,
it was kind of disruptive.
I'm presenting my case, counselor. Shut the fuck up. Now, as we read that experimental verification and hypotheses are absolutely necessary in science, we get cosmology from Gun J, cited in Cho Adrian, a singular conundrum. How odd is our universe? From Science in 2007. Cosmology may look like a science, but it isn't a science. A basic tenet of science is that you can do repeatable experiments. You can't do that in cosmology. Shocking surprise from Professor Nick Strobel, Bakersfield College. Unlike other sciences, astronomy is entirely observational. You cannot run experiments on things. You cannot manipulate the objects to see how they work. So if cosmology isn't science due to the lack of experiment, therefore astronomy isn't science. Simple. That's all you had to wait for. Just for me to get done with my case. Prosecution rests.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Now you're done talking.
Listen, brother, it was a question you asked.
Okay. I don't think we're trying to. I don't really think this is going to be a very productive conversation for me. I'm not trying to say anything bad about you guys. Nothing at all. But it felt a little hostile.
It gets a little disingenuous for you to ask a question and then not listen to the answer. He went through all that effort to answer you, and then you just was like, "Oh, I don't want to hear this shit because you got caught."
Hold on. I didn't want him to waste effort into going to something.
Easy. Why are we saying that astronomy isn't science?
Because you guys do not believe in.
No, not by what we believe.
Okay. No, you're right. You're right.
Through the definition with you.
No, you guys say that it does not.
Not you guys. He just read the definitions from Rochester University, a bunch of other places. What did they say science is?
All right.
Requires experimentation, yeah?
Exactly.
Requires being able to manipulate your presumed cause of an effect, yes?
Yeah, okay. I understand you want to stay on track on this.
Which they're not doing. Well, you asked the question, Huey took the time to answer you, and now you're acting like it was rude for him to answer you. So I want to make sure that you actually even listened to his answer and understood it. So
okay, but I don't believe that I'm being listened to.
Yeah? There was no experiment, yeah, in the astronomy. Right?
Okay.
Let me ask you this: Why do you think astronomy is a science? What did they do to convince you it is an actual science?
Well, if I have the opportunity to fully respond, sure, I would like to address what you're saying. So, first of all, I'm going to answer your question. But in order to answer that question, it requires me to explain other things that might lead up to the thing that I'm going to explain, or the answer I'm going to give you to your question. And that is when when astronomers are looking at things up in the sky, right? And they're trying to come up with an explanation on why the things are happening, right? It's kind of very hard to do an experiment when a star is so big. They believe that there's a star, right? Okay, wait.
It's so hard to do the experiment. You can't do the experiment. Therefore, it's not scientific methods thing.
So it is very hard. But what I wanted to say was, and I used the word restrict, and it got kind of, it got kind of directed into an area that I did not explicitly mean. What I wanted to say is that scientists do, these astronomers do think about, do trying to think up about what they can reasonably argue is going on up in the sky, because we don't really have a one-to-one experiment available for us to test whether or not what the cause are of solar flares.
Yes, we do. Yes, we have experiments we can try.
Okay. So you guys have experiments you can try.
Stars don't exist in a vacuum. saying that the sun is a ball of gas is fucking retarded.
Okay, so we know what the scientific method is on Earth, right? We know what that is, and you're admitting that they're not doing that, but you still want to call it the same thing.
Yeah, you're just being like, oh, it's too hard to do experiments. Too bad. That's not science then. So the definition of pseudoscience is that which is mistakenly believed to follow the scientific method, right? This doesn't follow the scientific method. Therefore, it's pseudoscience by definition.
So,
the thing is, why is this important? Like, it's really like, why is this important, right? Because when they say, hey, stars made of gas, and this is science, people think of the certainty of science that is demonstrated by experiments on Earth, and they apply the same degree of certainty to that claim as the claim of, like, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. They think that they have the same level of certainty because they said, this is science, that's science, so they must use the same method, and I'm going to take this claim with the same amount of certainty as that claim, right? That's unwarranted.
Yeah,
you're just saying the word science to give it a false sense of validity, where it doesn't have the same validity.
This is the linguistic branch of globe propaganda. This is why, because like you said earlier, your understanding of the word science is just what is factually true about nature, which, fine, as a colloquial definition, we can think of it like that. But when they start the globe is science, so this is how, when they start teaching you the globe and calling it science, your brain makes that connection between what actual science does, which is elucidate cause and effect relationships in the natural world, with the Earth being a ball, and you naturally lend it some credibility because it's got the word science attached to it. This is why the language is important, because it's not scientific by any means. Everything to do with the globe is pseudo-scientific at best.
Okay. Can I get one more thing clear? Is that, like I said, I'm not trying to come over here and say you guys are just a bunch of weird people and
yeah, that's fine. We got all that. Doesn't matter. You don't need to.
We don't want to
your point.
Okay, my intentions are clear, right? Like I'm trying to be.
It's clear. It's clear. Just make your point, dude.
Okay, so what I wanted to say about the things, like, okay, I could also argue that some of the things that many scientists claim to think, they do not necessarily have an experiment for it to prove it. But I do think that it can be argued. Now, I acknowledge it's not the same thing as having a experiment ready, right? And conducting the experiment. So you can always argue whether or not the thing that people are talking about is true or not and stuff, but
you can't.
I do not necessarily
no experiment, no science. Period. End of story.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, sure.
That's what science is based on.
Don't get confused in terms of thinking, well, just because they're not doing the scientific method doesn't mean they can't know something. That's not the only way to know things, but it's not correct to call things science if there's no experiments. So yeah, cosmology, astronomy, all of that, not science. So even if they want to say we've got a good argument, who cares? They don't have science. That's what we're saying. So as long as you're clear that it's not science, whatever. You can believe it if you want. I'm
not gonna say it is not science, okay? Because like I said, if I make a claim, I think to me it's a burden of proof.
Because it doesn't have experiment. No, it's just understanding what the scientific method is and recognizing that astronomy has no experimentation in it. It's observation. Speculation.
They make the self-serving claim that it's science. Okay, it's literally just a self-serving claim.
Yeah, so that's the bottom line, dude. So that's it. We don't need to go over that anymore.
Sure. No, it's definitely. I think scientists for themselves, and I think this is where you guys will disagree with me on this. I do think that obviously they do cling on to the idea of, okay, we need experiments to solidify our claim, right? But I don't necessarily think that trying to connect the dots and seeing the other things and thinking about, okay, if this is true, then out of logic this follows. I don't necessarily think it's a harmful thing to do.
You can think of any formulation of how you get to the truth that you want, but there's a very specific method called the scientific method, and that's what science is. So if it's not that, it's not science. You can give it another word if you want. The only reason you're attached to the notion is because you've been given this idea that science equals true, and then they go around calling anything science that they want you to believe, even when it's not actually science. That's what we're fighting against. We're actually defending science, actual science, and we're calling out the pseudoscience of the globe.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of astronomy, right? We've talked to astrophysicists, many of them. I've talked to like probably 3 PhDs. So let me give you an example of how they determine whether there's an exoplanet. They look at the brightness of a star and how it dims and gets brighter, and they go, "That's a planet."
Right.
By watching the light, the intensity of light change.
Yeah, I've seen.
Now, to say that that's not a leap of fucking logic, dude.
Well, I don't know. Look, you can say things, right? And at face value, you might think, well, that doesn't make any fucking sense, right? And this is also something
no, it makes sense. Listen, it makes sense, but it could be any innumerable amount of things that make the fucking light get brighter and dimmer.
Right. It could be, but maybe they argue that the other things are not the causation of the light dimming. For example,
there's no way to know without the experiment. That's the point. There's no way to know without the experiment. Whether there's a confounding variable or whether there's some other variable that you don't know about.
Right.
That's the point of doing an experiment. You have an independent variable and a dependent variable, and like if there's other variables that could possibly be the cause, you control them so they can't actually be the cause, right? They're called control variables, and then you do the experiment.
I think it's not necessary. I think what they're doing is operating on things that are much easier to prove via experiments, and they're just trying to connect the dots, just very simply put.
They're operating under their suppositional worldview of a heliocentric globe paradigm that they were taught. They're not operating from some intuitive or empirical basis for what they're observing in the sky. They're presuming that the Earth is a ball, everything else is a ball floating around in a vacuum. That's not them figuring that out. That's a philosophy, a religion. That's what they're going on.
Yeah, I think when the empirical method of obtaining evidence and making conclusion, if that's all that matters, then you can argue that astronomers are just astronomy is a pseudoscience for like the most part. I understand that's what you're trying to.
Yeah, I gave you what the empirical observation was. They saw a star get brighter and dimmer. That's their empirical observation.
Yeah, and they do it via satellites or telescopes on Earth, but they don't really have they can't really touch the star or whatever. It's just kind of
we know that. That's the point.
We've been speculating on the luminaries since time began, and the current hypothesis that some invisible bending and warping space-time fabric is causing everything to move around is no more plausible or far-fetched than claiming that chariots are dragging the lights around, right? Neither are proven by experiment or evidenced in any way. It's just speculation based on a world view. That's exactly what modern astronomy is.
I think it's not necessarily an incredibly unreasonable thing to do when you can very much argue on the things.
It is actually incredibly unreasonable. You know what happens to gas in a vacuum?
Okay. What happens to gas in a vacuum? Well,
it doesn't form a ball. Does it?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't form a ball. What does water do in a vacuum?
Probably start boiling.
Yeah, it doesn't wrap around and form a ball around something else. So yeah, the entire cosmology is ludicrous on its face. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think. I think I want to. Right now, I am kind of late because I want to go outside right now. But yeah, we should probably definitely talk about like experiments, right? And should talk about doing that, actually reviewing the experiments that you guys have done.
Well, listen, we're here 24/7, so you come back anytime and you go and check out those experiments. So if you're on the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord server, I don't know if you're on that, but you should be. That's our home server. That's got loads of resources that you can look into. Look at the additional information section.
Yeah, sure. No, I was just trying to hop in here, and you guys were just talking to another group of people earlier that you guys perceive to be disruptive and stuff, and I was being asked questions, and from then on we developed we developed a conversation about stuff. But yeah, ideally, I would like to talk. I would like to look at the evidence you guys put forth.
But we're not going to stop you, so yeah.
That's the way I logically came to a point where I realized the things that I believed in wasn't adding up to what was being said or like presented. So I think like that's why I like doing that, because that was that's kind of like the way I got to where I'm at today. But I understand what you're saying totally. Like it's easier just to cut it off. And when I say cut it off, I mean like don't go down that road with them and just keep them like hold them to the fire of like exactly what you're talking. I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying.
I've explained this earlier that this is an unfair realm. You're using logic and reason. They are not. I've said this many times. It should be applicable to conversations that you have in this, flat Earth, globe Earth discussion. Like, so when you have it with them, they're not playing fair. You are. You're trying to reason with them. That seems like the approach, right? Not what you're trying to do. You're trying to reason with them. They're not. I'm trying to tell you guys, they're not trying to do the thing you're doing. It seems effective in your own mind. You're trying to work it out. They're not trying for that. They don't care about working it out. They want to win.
Yeah, it ends up being that meme where the guy's talking to the wall. That's exactly what it ends up being.
Yeah, that's why I said. Yeah. And then you think in your mind you work it out to like, well, I can see how this could be effective if the person could use their logic and reason. Let me appeal to that. They don't care. They're identifying with this paradigm of a cosmology that does not exist. And they're trying for you to see that they don't care how incoherent, discombobulated, like obtuse. They don't care. They're just going to keep continuing to say Earth is round, Earth is round. Like that's the level that we're dealing with. So you have to expose that. Either that or you're going to get the result of being frustrated and it's just never going to go your way. Yeah. That's why, like I was saying, like this realm is unfair. I wish it was the way you think, like to reach people and just reason with them, but that's just not. It's never going to be that.
It's also to a way to you can quickly tell who's an anti-flat earther and who's a glober that just still believes but just needs to have that conversation, because it does open up for them to ask question after question after question. And then you actually get to a point where they're actually listening to your answers and not being so defensive. And like I said, it really like you can see who's anti-flat earth, who's not.
There's a time and place for, I think, those kind of discussions, but I think there has to be a few barriers that get knocked down before you get to that place where you think that it's best to have that conversation. Yeah, there's a time and place for that. It's just not right away. Right away, there's way too many walls in the way. Like, and when you try to logic and reason with them at the beginning, it falls on deaf ears. They're resistant. But if you knock down a few of those walls, get them to realize there's nothing they have to offer, then you can come and like ones that are like defenseless, right? They're like, oh, okay, well then how does it work? You know, and then they start asking you.
And they're waiting.
Then you can come in with a bit of logic and reason. Perhaps it will land somewhere they can think.
Yeah, true.
But
I agree.
But I mean, like, listen, man. Like, I told Rebel Andrus, I'm like, you do you. If you think that your method is the way to do it, it's just you see the result, right? When you try to do that, and they're just laughing, and they're like, dude, you just denying the fact that you don't